First, the AI war is over. Apple just waved the white flag, Wall Street has a new king, and Siri has a new brain.
We explain the $4 trillion flip.
Then, stop learning to code.
The data shows the number one job skill to get hired right now is the oldest skill in history.
And finally, a criminal investigation into the Fed chair?
We're breaking down why the political Fed is the biggest threat to your savings this year.
Let's start the show.
This is Nick.
This is Jack.
It's Tuesday, T-Boy, Tuesday, January 13th. And today's pod is the best one yet. This is a T-Boy.
The top 3 pop business news stories you need to know today.
All right, Jack, you remember that driving range I took you to in the Presidio in San Francisco the other week?
Yeah.
I found a better one. I just went to a better one.
Lincoln Park Golf Course, right?
Yeah, I self-upgraded on this one. I owe you a better round next time. I'm sorry about that.
Were there more coyotes? Because that determines the quality of the golf course in San Francisco.
Yeah, I never found that ball, and we'll never know what happened to it.
All right, Nick, as long as you gave your mother-in-law back those clubs you borrowed from her, let's get to the news.
For our first story, Apple's Siri just broke up with OpenAI and is hooking up with Google instead. Apple Intelligence powered by Google.
This is why Google is now worth more than Apple is.
Oh, it's got us thinking about some fairy tales here. But Yetis, the biggest tech since the internet, it's been a gigantic swing and a miss down in Cupertino.
We're talking about AI.
Yeah, we are.
Because in June of 2024, which was already late back then,
It was.
Apple finally unveiled Apple Intelligence, their take on artificial intelligence.
Here was the vision. Siri was going to become fluent in AI, powered by ChatGPT. And how did that look, Jack?
Never came.
No, it didn't.
We're on the iPhone 17 and it's still not here. So to finally make Siri AI fluent, Apple just confirmed this week they're tapping Google's Gemini and Google Cloud.
Huge win by Google to become the large language model that powers the world's iDevices.
That's why for the first time since 2019, Alphabet's market cap is now larger than Apple's.
That's right, the timing couldn't be freakier, right, Jack?
Google's valuation hit $4 trillion yesterday for the first time ever. It's just the second company to ever hit that milestone.
Jack, this is like LeBron leaving Cleveland, not taking his talents to South Beach. He's taking them to Menlo Park.
But also South Beach. Because Google's powering like everything now in the background.
That's a fair point. Now, besties, this is why Jack and I find this fascinating. It brings up an underappreciated part of business.
Because anything that's the default on an iPhone, that's tech's golden ticket right there.
I mean, Jack, if you're the default, that's an immediate profit puppy, baby. Everyone is opted into you.
So Google winning this golden ticket, default AI provider on all Apple devices?
It reflects so many things, Jack, and I thought, like, each of these could be its own takeaway, right, Jack?
The first thing this story reflects is that antitrust is dead.
Totally.
A federal judge let Google off the hook last year for being a monopoly. So now Google is brazenly expanding its monopoly into new monopolies.
Okay, so that's Google. The other point here is that Apple is kind of waving the white AI flag right now.
Nick, we're 4 years into the AI race. Apple was the most valuable tech company, but Siri still speaks AI like a toddler does.
Jack, this is the second rival Apple's had to tap in order to improve AI on its iPhones, man.
And yet AI is still not really on our iPhones.
Okay, the third thought Jack and I had here was like OpenAI, it's continued the cold streak.
OpenAI used to be so hot. But now it's like, hey, Siri, turn off ChatGPT, turn on Gemini instead.
Ever since Thanksgiving, Sam Altman's been peeing the pants on an awkward code red situation out there.
Every percentage point of market share OpenAI is losing, Google seems to be gaining.
But besties, the biggest thing this story represents is that we all had it wrong when it comes to Google and AI.
Google's moat didn't get crossed by AI. AI became another Google moat.
All right, Tinkerbell. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies over at Google?
In Google's castle, email was the first moat, search was the second moat, and now AI is becoming the third.
Yetis, Gmail controls 75% of the US email market. Google Search is even more powerful with 90% of its market.
90 plus?
Yeah.
And then came ChatGPT. We all thought that it would finally neutralize Google's internet advantages.
Remember what we were saying, Jack? Like, instead of checking Gmail, you'd let ChatGPT act like your assistant and summarize that giant bachelorette party email chain.
And instead of searching the web, you'd let ChatGPT search the web and find that Hanukkah gift for your mama.
But it looks like we're all wrong because Google overcame OpenAI's threat and built their own chatbot just as good.
And Google built that chatbot into Chrome, into Chromebooks, into iPhones now. You want proof? Last week, Samsung announced that Gemini would power the native chatbot on all Samsung devices.
This week, Apple just announced the same thing. Combined, what percent of American phones is that, Jack?
All Apple phones, all Samsung phones, that's 70% of the American smartphone market powered by Gemini.
Besties, Google just became the default diva again.
First for email, then for search, now for AI assistants.
Google, they got enough moats to make Cinderella jealous.
I think your fairy tale geology is off.
I think you're thinking of Rapunzel, Jack. For our second story, this month is the hottest month of the year for switching careers and applying for new jobs.
And the number one skill most in demand to get you hired right now, it's not AI. It's kind of the opposite of AI. It's storytelling.
But besties, don't worry. We're whispering here. It's just you, Jack, and me. Your secret's safe with us.
We know you spent it yesterday afternoon scrolling and looking for new jobs.
You got like a dozen tabs open.
No, they have two computers. They have their work computer and their private computer.
Besties, happy Job Jump January to all those who celebrate. One of the most popular New Year's resolutions, it's career-related.
Finding higher paying or more fulfilling jobs. And the second week of the new year is when you get to your career pivot resolutions.
But to sprinkle on some context, it is a tough market out there, isn't it, Jack?
In November, the number of job seekers was more than the number of job openings in this country.
Plus, Jack, you got AI as the new gatekeeper for HR.
No interview unless the chatbot likes your resume bullets.
But besties, it is with that backdrop that we were shocked to see the number one skill to stand out these days.
Storytelling. Corporate America's hottest job is the world's oldest job.
Yeah.
People are being paid to tell stories at corporations.
Storytellers, like ancient Greek philosophers, they would have crushed the super day at Goldman Sachs this year, Jack.
Hey, Homer, you just got an interview at McKinsey.
Reciting the Odyssey, that's how you get the job at Bain these days.
On LinkedIn, the number of job postings with the word storytelling in the description doubled last year. There's 70,000 of them right now.
On earnings calls, CEO said the word storyteller 469 times last year.
That's 3 times more than 10 years ago.
And now, besties, we should point out, if you hear storyteller, you're probably thinking novelist, playwright, frontier cowboys by a campfire.
But the Wall Street Journal profiled a corporate takeover of the word. Storytelling is the new marketing.
And marketing is needed in every industry.
That's why Microsoft is hiring a senior director of storytelling.
That's why Chime wants a financial storyteller.
Notion merged the comms, social media, and influencer teams
Into what, Jack?
a 10-person storytelling team.
Ready for this one, English majors? Vanta, the tech company, is paying $274,000 for a head of storytelling.
But our favorite detail of this story is a job posting from Google.
Oh, you got to read this out loud, Jack.
Storytellers play an integral role in customer acquisition and long-term growth.
Besties, if Jane Austen were alive today, she would be the COO of Kellogg's.
I don't know about Kellogg's.
Well, she would bring some sense and sensibility to the balance sheet, Jack. So, Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies looking for jobs by storytelling?
As Plato once said, those who tell the stories rule society.
Yeah, it is. One fundamental reason for this surge in corporate storytelling is just there are fewer newspapers out there.
In the past, news analysts, reporters, journalists, they wrote stories about companies.
But with traditional journalism declining, today it is the brands that have to promote themselves.
And they're not doing it on old media. They're doing it on podcasts, blog posts, their own social media channels, and on their own Substacks.
Okay, but as a couple of business storytellers here, Jack and I were thinking about it, and we think it's actually more deeply a response to artificial intelligence.
In a world of increasingly fake AI slop, real content stands out.
You see, AI is good for research, calculating, summarizing, but humans are still best at storytelling authentically to other humans.
The CEO of Duolingo was on our pod last year and basically said this much.
He said, like, the pendulum of power is swinging right now.
From engineers to artists.
That is why, whatever industry you're applying to, Yetis, storytelling is the new hiring hack.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor.
For our third and final story, Jerry Powell, chairman of the Fed, told the world on Sunday night he's being criminally investigated by the Trump administration under false pretenses.
On Monday, the financial world came to Powell's defense. We'll explain why.
But besties, this drama goes all the way back to 2017, when President Trump appointed Jerry Jerome Powell to chair our nation's central bank.
But ever since then, President Trump has been insulting Powell publicly hundreds of times. He blames him for pretty much every economic woe.
This spring, the president escalated, though, from name-calling and scapegoating to threatened indictments.
Now, to sprinkle on some context, America created the Federal Reserve in 1914. We gave it independence to insulate it from politics.
And why do we do that, Jack? It's a unique institution.
So that the Fed does what's best for the economy, not what's best for the president's approval ratings.
Well, fast forward to today, and now the Trump administration has escalated their frustration with our Fed chair to an unprecedented level.
To a criminal investigation. The DOJ has subpoenaed Jerome Powell's Fed and threatened an indictment of him. That's according to Powell himself, who set the narrative on Sunday night in a press release and a video.
A video that kind of looks like the hostage video, to be honest, but a very intense video nonetheless.
According to Jerome Powell, the criminal investigation into him is about his testimony to Congress last year about renovations of historic Fed office buildings, which have gone way over budget.
That's right. It looks like it comes down to architecture and interior design, but the Fed chair, Jerry Powell, says that is a false pretext. The real reason he's being investigated is...
Let's let him explain.
The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president.
Basically, he didn't bend the knee to President Trump.
He didn't drop interest rates fast enough. Now, besties, we should point out cost overruns of a government construction project are not something that usually gets the Department of Justice's investigations.
And Powell's term ends as Fed chair in just 4 months. So why investigate him now?
Well, the most likely scenario, it looks like, is President Trump is punishing Jerry Powell for not taking those orders to cut interest rates faster.
Now, this could go nowhere. Politically motivated indictments, which this certainly looks like it is, are often thrown out quickly by the courts.
And it also could backfire on President Trump.
When Jerome Powell is done as Fed chairman, he can retire or he can stay on the Federal Reserve's board.
And you know what? Now Jerry Powell is more likely to stay just to prove how independent the Fed should be.
Like the stubborn neighbor who doesn't mow his lawn just because he can.
So Jack, what's the takeaway for our buddies watching the Federal Reserve?
Our future could go two ways. A political Fed or an independent Fed?
Yetis, the president has said he'll replace Jerry Powell in May with someone who will follow his orders.
But that doesn't mean the end of an independent Fed, because the interest rate committee is made up of 12 different officials.
So what you're saying, Jack, is Powell's Trump-picked successor would only have one vote out of the 12 votes to change interest rates.
Right. But if the other board members get threatened with prosecution, then the central bank could lose its most important asset, its independence.
Besties, a politicized, non-independent Fed, it might do things like cutting interest rates before elections to juice up the economy and make voters happy.
That would probably give the economy a short-term sugar high, but like during the pandemic, it could lead to an inflation spike.
And that scenario, that is why all three former Fed chairs still alive wrote a letter on Monday defending Jerry Powell and the Federal Reserve's independence.
Nick and I are history and econ majors. We can tell you, only weak economies with weak democracies have politicized central banks.
And you know who else defended the chair? 4 former Treasury secretaries.
More than half of those officials Nick's mentioning were appointed by Republicans.
And HS officials, Jack. Bank of America's CEO said that, quote, markets will punish us if we don't have an independent Fed.
Like Jerome Powell or don't like Jerome Powell, the whole financial world seems to agree.
We want an independent Fed, not a political one. Jack, could you whip up the takeaways for us for T-Boy Tuesday?
Apple confirmed yesterday that Gemini will power Siri starting later this year. Hopefully it'll finally be AI fluent. And ChatGPT, you're out.
AI didn't cross Google's email and search modes. AI is becoming another Google moat.
For our second story, storytelling is the new corporate word for marketing. And it's also the new hiring hack.
Yeah, happy Job Jump January. Storytell about yourself in interviews so you can storytell about the company for a paycheck.
And our third and final story. Jerome Powell said Sunday he's being investigated under false pretenses by the Trump administration.
And the whole financial world, even some CEOs, defended Fed independence.
But besties, this pod's not over yet. Here's what else you need to know today.
Abercrombie and Shake Shack both had a disappointing holiday earnings season.
Abercrombie stock dropped 17% yesterday on news that you traded down from the Hollister brand.
And Shake Shack's holiday sales also disappointed, but interestingly, they blamed it on the weather.
A lot of wintry mixes in the Northeast. Too cold to go get a Shack burger, I guess.
Is it though? Honestly, soft.
And second, yesterday, bank stocks and credit card companies fell on a Trump tweet over the weekend.
The president is continuing his affordability messaging, this time focused on the credit cards.
He says he's going to limit the interest rate credit card companies can charge to 10%.
And he called for a one-year cap of 10% effective January 20th, but unclear if he can do that legally without Congress.
And finally, Jersey Mike's is expanding to Europe. So is the NBA.
For the sandwich chain, Italian is the most popular cold-cut sandwich, but will Italians actually want a 12-inch sandwich?
I don't think Italians want an Italian-American Italian sandwich.
But the National Basketball League is a better bet because basketball is already popular in Europe. So the NBA is pitching investors on a new league with 12 teams across the continent.
And they're charging a $1 billion price tag to own those initial 12 teams.
The London Bridges versus the Berlin Walls. Who you got? Now time for the best fact yet. This one an answer to our T-Boy trivia from yesterday. You ready, Jack?
Yeah, the question was, where does Venezuela's name come from?
Yeah, and the hint was that the name Venezuela is connected to spaghetti and meatballs. So you ready for it?
Yes, I am.
There is no one clear answer to where the name comes from, but there is one commonly accepted by historians, and here it is. It comes from a voyage in 1499 by Americo Vespucci, the Italian navigator. When he got to the region now known as Venezuela, it reminded him of Venice, Italy.
Oh.
And in Spanish, the name for the Italian city of Venice is Venezuela.
Really?
And that is where the name Venezuela likely came from.
Pretty flimsy connection to spaghetti and meatballs, but I'll take it.
Have you been to Venice, Jack?
I have not.
Then the spaghetti and meatball stands. Yetis, you'll look fantastic for T-Boy Tuesday, especially if you're ordering a slice tonight to make up for the peak pizza situation.
Rest in peace, Bertucci's. Rest in peace.
And if you are applying to a new job, remember to send today's pod to another buddy who's also probably applying to a new job. HYHTBOY.
Have you had the best one yet?
That's how we grow the show. If you know, you know. And before we go, a happy birthday to Yeti Flourishing down in Mountain View, California. Longtime Yeti snacker turned Yeti. Thanks for being with us.
Happy birthday to Laura down in Scarsdale.
And Abby Claus suggested the Roots app for January, Jack. She wanted to get that message to you.
It's another app that makes you pause before doing your mindless scrolling.
And a congratulations to Andre Newen in Irvine, California, returning back to the gym after a long hiatus and a new Yeti.
And a big thank you to Andres Espinosa in Fernandina Beach, Florida, who successfully told everyone who will listen to this show.
Andres, thanks for being the best one yet.
This is Jack. Nick owns stock of Shake Shack, and we both own stock of Apple.